So if someone mentioned the name Asus to you, you'd probably first think of laptops. You're not going to think of mobile phones. And that's okay, not many people will, because Asus haven't really been that prevalent on the market at the moment. But they have got some really interesting offerings, including their Zenfone AR, which comes with Daydream and Tango AR applications from Google. But yeah, sure, they are very innovative phones, but they've got to appeal to a mass market like the other manufacturers, who would not want to put their mobile phone in front of as many people as possible, like Samsung, Apple, LG, OnePlus, and literally all of the others. But this is where the Zenfone 4 sits. It sits alongside the OnePlus 5T, the Honor View 10, which we looked at not too long ago, and it's really a mid-range handset coming in at around £400. Now, it can be found cheaper online as well, but you have to do a little bit of hunting. But this is the Zenfone 4, and I want to talk about that today. Now, the biggest shame about its design is the fact that it does look so plain. Now, it's a functional phone, don't get me wrong, but when you've got manufacturers like OnePlus putting an AMOLED screen on their 5T, or you've got Honor putting an 18:9 aspect ratio screen on their View 10, this is still trailing so far behind that. Now, however, for the price, you are getting a pretty smart looking handset. Now, it has taken a lot of inspiration from, I would say, something like the iPhone 7, maybe the Samsung S8. It is covered completely in glass on the front and the back as well. And what's nice about the back is Asus are calling it their diamond cut finish. But if you can see, it actually glistens really quite nicely in the light. And it picks up these kind of flares that are coming off of the back depending on the angle that you hold it in the light. And it actually does look really, really smart. I mean, they start from the Asus logo, which is in the middle here. And then it just kind of bursts out. These kind of like shines burst out from that Asus logo, and it actually, I think, is quite a quirky design for the actual mobile phone, and it's very, very smart looking. Now, the phone isn't quite black, and although they call this midnight black, I would say there's more of a blue and a grey kind of tint to it, so it's not like the jet black finish of an iPhone 7, for example. Now, the biggest problem with it being glass is the fact that it is very, very slippery. Now, although you can get a pretty nice hold onto the phone, and if you've got big enough hands, you're not going to really find yourself dropping it. But any kind of slip on the back, then this is going flying, because this is a very, very smooth back to the phone, and it does feel very, very slippery in the hand. So I would recommend getting this into some kind of transparent rubber case, just so you've got that extra grip to hold onto. And even on the sides, there's a metal band that goes around the outside. Even that's very, very smooth and very slippery as well. So you've not even got any grip on the side either. So just bear that in mind when you are purchasing this phone, that it can be quite slippery under certain conditions. And also the fact that it is one hell of a fingerprint magnet as well, which really does show up fingerprints quite easily. I don't know if you can see that in the light, but I've only been holding this phone now. I cleaned it before I started the video, and it's already got fingerprints, really solid fingerprint marks on the back of the phone as well. Not so much on the front because you've got the screen there, but certainly on the back, if you're going to be holding it for long periods of time, it's going to pick up fingerprints. So the power and volume buttons on the right-hand side are where you'd probably expect them to be. They're very, very easy to get to if you are one-hand operating this phone. And I didn't have any struggle at all getting my thumb from the fingerprint sensor at the front, which is embedded into the phone this time, so you can feel for it in less than ideal lighting conditions. I never really felt stretched getting to the volume and the power on the right-hand side either. I could reach that quite nicely. Now, on the left-hand side, you will find your SIM card slot, which can hold 2 SIM cards. That means that if you've got 2 mobile phone numbers, or say you've got a work and a personal phone, you can then stick both of them in here and use the phone simultaneously. Now, saying that, you can only use one 4G signal at a time. You can't use dual band 4G signals. So you have to then swap out that 4G signal for the other one if you're on 2 different carriers, for example, and one signal stronger in one area than the other. Now, if you don't use 2 SIM cards, then you can use that second SIM card tray for an SD card. Now, this has got 64 gig of data on here already, which is a huge amount for a phone that only comes in at £400, I think anyway, compared to other phones on the market. If you want to put an extendable micro SD card in there to extend that storage capacity, then you can. You just have to sacrifice one of those SIM card trays to do it. Now, on the bottom of the phone, you've got a 3.5mm jack, which is absolutely superb. So well done, Asus, for keeping that. You can use any headphones you want in there now and get a really, really nice quality out of your music. But what they have put on here, which is following modern trends, is a USB Type-C charging port on there. So you can actually use the fast charge of their plug as well. And you can get some really, really nice charging times out of this phone. So if you are caning it on the train on the way to work in the morning, for example, then when you get to work, plug it in, little bit of a charge, and you're ready to go again. So when it comes to performance with this phone, on paper, this is so much worse than other phones on the market. But that's because Asus have decided to use a newer 6 series, the 630 octa-core processor, which is, to be honest, for this phone, an absolute powerhouse. Now, you'll look at the specifications of, say, the OnePlus 5T, and you'll notice that they're using an 8 series Snapdragon processor, but it is an older processor. So the speeds of this processor can really keep up with, I say keep up with it. I never really noticed any slowdown with this phone when I was whizzing through apps or multitasking, playing games. I never noticed any slowdown at all. So inside you'll also find an Adreno 508 graphics chip and 4GB of RAM backing up that processor. So anything you do that requires a little bit more detailed processing like gaming, you've got the specification there to do it. Now, I thought about this quite hard and I didn't want to give you the numbers for like a Geekbench benchmark or a 3D benchmark test because, yes, in reality, because the specifications of the OnePlus 5T are much higher than this one in terms of the 8 series processor, the numbers are going to be a lot higher on a benchmark. But in real world testing, it didn't seem like it was the case. It was a really strange one. Whether this phone has been superbly optimized to work with the specification that Asus have given it, I don't really know. But the actual speed of this phone was excellent, and I can't really fault the performance of this phone at all. And even comparing it to mobile phones that have a higher spec, it still ran fine. You're not going to notice any slowdown. You can still go on gaming, Facebook, take some really nice pictures, or go on Instagram and scroll through, multitask and look at emails and listen to music all at the same time, and whatever you want to do. This phone never ever showed any kind of slowdown or stuttered or lagged. It was a really, really nice experience. So the battery performance on here will give you about a day's worth of use, but that all depends on how you use your phone. For kind of middleweight users, as I called them, if you're going to be surfing social media on your way to work, if you're going to then be using your phone on lunch, and then maybe listening to music, then you're going to get about a day's worth of use. But if you're going to be hammering the games on the way to work and then hammering at lunch, then you're going to have to take a charger with you, or at least a power bank, to get you through the day. So if I talk to you about the camera performance, on the back you have a dual lens setup, which is exactly the same as most other handsets now, modern handsets on the market at least. The first being a standard and telephoto lens, which has a Sony image processor inside it, and it shoots at 12 megapixels with some really, really nice, clear, detailed photos. It's really, really good. The second lens, however, works slightly differently. Rather than having that standard and telephoto or color and monochrome that you find on other cameras, the second lens is a super wide-angle lens, shooting at 120 degrees. Now, the nice thing about this lens is that it doesn't give any kind of, or very, very minimal kind of edge distortion. You know, like on a GoPro, you see GoPro footage and it looks kind of like a fisheye. Not quite as bad as a fisheye, but you've still got that distortion where the kind of picture's bending. You haven't got that here. You've got a very, very nice kind of straight, flat image. The only problem with it, though, is it shoots at 8 megapixels, so there is a quality drop, and I don't know why Asus has done this. It seems very counterintuitive to put a lesser image sensor or a lesser megapixel sensor on a camera that's trying to capture a lot more information. It doesn't really make much sense, but that's the way it is. Now, you can notice a difference in quality between the two, between the super wide angle and the standard lens. There is that quality drop and you do notice it, but it's still a pretty cool lens to have. And if you are taking a landscape photo, for example, you've got a lot more room that you can get into one frame rather than on that standard photo. Now, when it comes to video performance, the camera has the ability to shoot at 4K, which is really, really cool. So when you play it back on 4K enabled devices, unfortunately, the Asus Zenfone 4 isn't one of them. The screen on here is only 1920 by 1080, and although, yes, you have the Super IPS Plus display, which enhances the quality a little bit. It's still not going to give you a 4K picture. So I don't know why Asus have given you the ability to shoot at 4K but not able to play back that 4K footage. So what would I do? I would drop down the quality to 1080p. Now, if I drop the quality to 1080p on the Asus Zenfone 4, then it gives me 60 frames per second frame rate, which is really cool, over the 30 frames per second that you're going to get with 4K. Now, the phone does have the ability to also do like a super slow-mo, as they're calling it, which gives you 240 frames per second frame rate, but you can only shoot at 720p. So again, you're taking a quality hit if you want to start shooting slow-mo. And the slow-mo, yes, it is really clear and looks okay somewhat. It's just not going to give you the resolution that the 4K standard 30 frames per second will. But the best option here is the 1080p 60 frames per second for extra smooth kind of motion footage. Absolutely. Hands down. And the only other thing really with the camera is you're probably going to be uploading your videos to Facebook or social media anyway, which again compresses that video even further, giving you an even lesser quality hit. So stick to the 1080. Don't worry about the 4K. Save your storage space for something else and just stick to 1080p 60 frames per second recording. So the Asus Zenfone 4 ships with Android 7.1.1 Nougat, but it has the ability to upgrade to Android 8.0 Oreo, so you're not going to be stuck in the past with your software. They also ship with their overlay skin, the Zen UI, which has actually come with some very, very welcome changes. Now, the first is the ability to log into 2 Facebook accounts at once, and I can't tell you how useful that is on a mobile phone. Seeing as Twitter do it, Instagram do it as well, with the little drop-down menu, you can have 2, you can have up to 5, I think, on Instagram now. Facebook never have done it, have never done it in the past, and they've not done it now. But on here, you've got the ability to log into 2 Facebook accounts. So if you've got one personal and one for work, like I've got, it makes it a lot easier and a lot less time consuming switching between the two, having to log in, enter your password and really just waste time doing that. You just switch between the 2 accounts using different apps on your home screen, and then it just works seamlessly, and it's really, really cool and a really, really nice feature to have. There's also a memory booster utility which boosts the amount of RAM memory you have to use on particular apps. And the other thing that's really smart about the phone is the fact that you can sort your photo album on the phone by people's faces that it would recognize in the photos. I'm not sure why anyone would do this. I'm certainly a fan of having my photos kept in date order, but the ability is there to do it. So if you've got a group of friends, you want to bunch their photos together, and then another group of friends bunch their photos together, you can do that with a touch of a button within the Gallery app. Asus have also scaled very heavily back on the amount of third-party apps that the phone actually ships with, which is absolutely wonderful to see. It always frustrates me, and mobile phone tariffs are the worst for this, or the networks are the worst for this when they sell you their phones, is phones come with all of these really weird and wonderful pre-installed apps that you never use, that you're never ever going to look at, and generally you go through uninstalling them anyway. But it's nice to see that the Asus UI, or the Zen UI should I call it, has scaled back on those pre-installed apps, and it makes it look really clean and feel really fast. You're not getting tied down, bogged down in various different, especially on the app menu. I mean, if I just quickly show you which apps are installed on this phone, is that 1 page of apps. Other phones come with 3, maybe 4, because there's just so much pre-installed junk on there that no one ever wants. This comes with 1 page of installed apps. For what it's worth, Asus have done a really good job on the Zenfone 4, and they've got a lot of things right, but one of the major things they haven't got right is the price. And when you consider something like the OnePlus 5T comes in at the same amount as the Zenfone 4, with a faster specification, although in reality, yes, you're not going to notice a huge difference, it kind of feels like a no-brainer to go for the OnePlus 5T. Now, the actual design of the Asus, I think, is really, really nice, especially with that diamond cut back and that shine that it gives off. It makes the phone look really, really smart compared to other phones at this kind of price. The only other things you're losing out on this phone compared to other phones on the market is things like the AMOLED screen that you'll find on the OnePlus 5T and the 18:9 aspect ratio on the Honor View 10. Their Android skin, the Zen UI, has been vastly improved over previous iterations, and the camera isn't that bad at all. It actually takes a really nice photo if you're in decent amount of light. Thank you very much for watching our review of the Asus Zenfone 4. If you enjoyed the video, then do click that like button. Please do subscribe to keep up with all of our latest tech and gaming videos, and also leave a comment below letting us know what you think of the Asus Zenfone 4, or whether you would go for a OnePlus 5T, an Honor View 10, or any other of mid-range handsets that we haven't mentioned throughout this review. Let us know in the comments, and also let us know what you think of the new set. We're in a new place, we've got a new desk, new walls, pictures are exactly the same, and the light tree so far is exactly the same, but let us know in the comments what you think of the new set and what you want to see on the wall behind me, just to improve kind of the quality of these videos. As I say, thank you very much for watching, and we will see you in the next video.